He hadn't eaten all day. His stomach growled as he sat alone on the bench, staring at the only meal he had left. A sandwich, half stale, half hope. Then he saw her, soaked from the rain, shivering, barefoot. No coat, no umbrella, just two haunted eyes begging without a word. He stood up, handed her the sandwich, and said, "It's not much, but it's yours." The next morning, she walked into his job, with a lawyer and a camera crew, and the whole room went silent. "Let's begin." Ethan Maddox worked late again, his jeans smeared with grease, his hands calloused and stained. He'd fixed 3 radiators, rewired an alternator, and patched 2 leaky tires at J&R Auto Shop, all before skipping lunch so his 8-year-old son, Liam, could have dinner. They were down to their last $20. It was nearly 10 p.m. when Ethan closed the shop, zipped up his jacket, and stepped into the stormy night. The streets of Fairview, Ohio, were empty, except for the flickering neon of the pawn shop and the dim glow of a flickering street lamp. His shoes were soaked, his feet frozen, but in his pocket, wrapped in tinfoil, was the sandwich he'd saved all day. He planned to eat it on the bench outside the 7-Eleven while waiting for the midnight bus. But as he sat down, teeth chattering from the cold, he saw her. She was no older than 30, drenched, slumped under the bus shelter with a torn bag and a cracked phone at her feet. No makeup, no jewelry, not even socks under her canvas shoes. Just a limp cardigan clinging to her trembling frame. He tried not to stare, but when her eyes met his, something broke. Without a word, Ethan got up, walked over, and knelt beside her. "Hey," he said gently. "Look, I've only got this. It's not fresh, but it's warm enough. You should have it." She blinked, confused. "No, I can't." "You can, and you will." He unwrapped the sandwich and handed it to her, refusing to leave until she took it. "I've gone to bed hungry before. It won't kill me, but it looks like you haven't eaten in days." Tears filled her eyes. She didn't thank him. She just ate, slowly, like someone who hadn't known kindness in a long time. When she finished, she looked up and asked softly, "What's your name?" "Ethan," he said, with a weary smile. "And yours?" But she didn't answer. She just stood, nodded once, and walked away. By morning, he'd forgotten the whole thing. He had bills to pay, a broken heater in his apartment, and a son who needed breakfast. At 7:45 a.m., he clocked in at the auto shop, sipped burnt coffee, and dived into his next repair job. At exactly 9:02 a.m., a black SUV pulled up outside. A tall woman in a tailored blazer stepped out, followed by a man in a suit holding a briefcase. The bell above the door jingled. His boss, Jake, looked up from the register. "We're not taking clients till noon." "We're not here for a service," the woman said. "We're looking for Ethan Maddox." Ethan stood, wiping his hands on a towel. "That's me." She walked up, smiled, and for the first time, he recognized her. Clean, dry, eyes no longer hollow. "I found out who you are," she said, "and you gave me your last meal." He blinked. "What?" The man beside her opened his briefcase and pulled out a folder. "Mr. Maddox, my client would like to speak with you privately. It concerns an opportunity that could change your life." The garage went dead quiet. Jake raised an eyebrow. "What the hell's going on?" "I don't know," Ethan muttered. But inside, his pulse roared, because something told him his life was about to change forever. Ethan followed them out back, through the narrow door behind the garage that led to a small break room. The coffee machine sputtered, and the only window was fog from the cold, but none of that mattered now. He sat across from the woman as she peeled off her blazer and set her leather handbag on the table, like it cost more than his entire paycheck. "I'm sorry for showing up like this," she said, her voice steadier now. "But I couldn't stop thinking about what you did last night. Not just the sandwich, but the way you looked at me. Like I mattered." Ethan rubbed the back of his neck. "I didn't do anything special. You did more than you realize." She nodded to the lawyer beside her. He slid a document across the table. "My name's Laura Brenner," she said, extending a perfectly manicured hand. "I run the Horizon Trust." Ethan shook it, still confused. Laura gestured toward the folder. "That's a legal offer. If you accept, we'll relocate you and your son, clear your debts, and enroll you in a program we fund for men like you. Single fathers who've been overlooked and overworked. It comes with housing, job training, and a paid stipend. We want you to work with us." Ethan blinked. "Work with you? I'm a mechanic." Laura's smile didn't fade. You're also a good man. And right now, that's the rarest qualification of all. His chest tightened. Why me? I mean, you could have walked past 100 people last night. I was testing something, she said. I'd gone undercover after a massive family blowout. I needed to see the real world. How people treat strangers with nothing to offer. You didn't know who I was. You didn't ask for anything in return. You just gave. Ethan stared down at the offer. The numbers on the paper made him feel dizzy. Housing, guaranteed salary, benefits, even Liam's school fees covered. But something in him hesitated. I don't want charity, he said finally, his voice low. Laura leaned forward. It's not charity. It's a return on investment. You invested in me when no one else would. And I'm not just repaying that. I'm paying it forward. Ethan looked away. What if I don't deserve it? She paused, then reached into her bag and pulled out a photo. A little girl, maybe 5, big brown eyes, curly hair, holding Laura's hand in a park. My daughter, she whispered. She passed 3 winters ago. The cold took her before the ambulance arrived, and not a single stranger stopped to help. That's why I started Horizon Trust. That's why I do this. The silence between them cracked wide open. The air grew thick with something deeper than guilt, something like understanding. Ethan swallowed hard. He thought of Liam, curled up with a blanket last night in a freezing apartment. He thought of the electric bill taped to the fridge, the eviction notice he hadn't told his son about yet. Then he looked up. When do we start? Laura smiled. Right now. Back inside the garage, Ethan packed up his few tools. Jake, his boss, watched with narrowed eyes. Where you going? Jake asked. Ethan handed him his apron. Someplace better. Jake scoffed. You think some fancy suit is going to save you? No, Ethan said as he turned toward the door. But maybe I'm finally ready to save myself. And with that, he walked out. Not just of the garage, but of the life that had kept him crawling on scraped knees for years. But what Ethan didn't know, what no one knew, was that this new chapter would pull him into something far deeper than a job. Because not everyone was happy about Laura's kindness. Not her board, not her family, and not the people who'd rather see a good man fail. The new apartment was nothing short of a miracle. 3 bedrooms, a working heater, a fridge full of groceries, a view of the skyline that looked like it belonged in a movie. Ethan stood in the center of the living room, still wearing his oil-stained work boots, unsure if he should breathe. Liam ran through the place barefoot, laughing like he hadn't in weeks. His joy echoed off the pristine walls, pure and bright. Dad, do we really live here now? Liam gasped, sliding across the hardwood floor in his socks. Ethan knelt down and pulled his son into a hug. Yeah, buddy, I guess we do. A welcome basket sat on the kitchen counter, fruit, chocolate, 2 prepaid phones, and a handwritten note from Laura. You earned this. Let me know when you're ready to start. It had only been a day since the encounter at the garage, and now, Ethan's world had been flipped inside out. But a part of him, a quiet, cautious part, kept waiting for the catch. Because in his experience, kindness always came with a price tag. He wouldn't have to wait long. 2 days later, Ethan walked into the Horizon Trust main building, a towering structure in downtown Cincinnati, all glass and steel. The receptionist greeted him like she'd been waiting her whole life to meet him. Mr. Maddox, welcome. Ms. Brenner is expecting you. Top floor, corner office. Elevator to your left. Top floor, corner office. He felt like an imposter in his only clean shirt and thrift store slacks. As he stepped into the elevator, he caught a glimpse of his reflection. His beard was scruffy, his eyes tired, but something in his posture had shifted. Hope, maybe. Laura was on the phone when he entered. She waved him in, into the call, and smiled. Ethan, sit. Her office overlooked the river. Behind her, a bookshelf lined with awards and framed photos of her late daughter. Olivia brought warmth to the sleek space. I'm sorry if this is too much too fast, she said. But when I find someone with heart, I move quickly. People like you are rare. I'm just a mechanic, he muttered. No, she said, her voice sharp but kind. You're a survivor, and survivors make the best advocates. That's why I want you to help lead one of our pilot outreach programs. His jaw slackened. Lead? It's not technical. You be connecting with other single dads, helping them navigate resources, mentoring. We'll train you, pay you well, and if it goes right, You'll become the face of our national campaign. Ethan blinked. Wait, face. Laura chuckled. You've got a great story, Ethan. One people need to hear. He hesitated. This is a lot. She leaned forward. You fed a stranger your last meal. You didn't ask her name. You didn't expect a reward. You reminded me why I built this place. There was again that gentle intensity. She made you believe. Ethan nodded slowly. All right, I'm in. But as he left her office, walking past sleek desks and people in expensive suits, a man stepped out of a conference room and blocked his path. Mid-40s, slick hair, cold eyes. You're the new charity case, the man said flatly. Ethan stiffened. Excuse me. I'm Harrison Klein, CFO, and I know Laura's soft spot for sob stories. But this isn't a soup kitchen. It's a business. And you don't belong here. Ethan stared him down. Well, I didn't belong in a garage either. And yet, I made that work. Let's see how long you last here, Harrison muttered, brushing past him. Over the next few weeks, Ethan threw himself into the work. He learned fast, showed up early, stayed late. He helped launch the Father Forward initiative, a support system for struggling single dads that included food programs, childcare, and legal aid. And soon, families began lining up, thanking him by name. But the higher he climbed, the more enemies he made. One afternoon, while reviewing Liam's school schedule in his office, Ethan got a call. It was the building manager. Mr. Maddox? Your apartment. There's been a break-in. His chest tightened. By the time he arrived, police were swarming the hallway. The door was kicked in, Liam's drawings torn, furniture overturned, and scrawled on the living room wall in red spray paint. You don't belong here. Liam was safe. At school, thank God. But Ethan stood frozen, staring at the words, fury rising in his gut. This wasn't just a threat. It was a message. And the moment Laura arrived, eyes wide with shock, Ethan turned to her and said, Tell me the truth. Who did this? She looked him straight in the eye. My board doesn't want you here. But I do. And I won't let them push you out. His fists clenched. Then we fight. Laura nodded. We fight. But deep down, Ethan knew this wasn't going to be a clean battle. Because power doesn't go down without a war. And the war had just begun. The vandalism changed something in Ethan. He wasn't scared. He was angry. For the first time in a long while, that familiar weight in his chest, the one he'd lived with through every eviction, every unpaid bill, every moment he'd gone without dinner so Liam could eat, shifted, hardened, became something else. Resolve. He sat on the floor that night, glass from the shattered frame of Liam's school photo crunching under his knees. Across the living room, the red letters still screamed, You don't belong here. But Liam was asleep in the only untouched room, wrapped in 2 blankets, unaware of the threat. And Ethan made a decision. He wouldn't run. The next morning, Ethan walked into Horizon Trust not with fear, but fire. He didn't wear the usual shy smile. He didn't lower his voice when he passed the executive floor. He held his chin up and stared back at every sideways glance. Laura was already in her office, pacing, phone to her ear. She looked up as Ethan entered. They're pushing for a media campaign, she said quickly, but I think it's a trap. They want to put you in the spotlight so they can tear you down. Let them try, Ethan replied, his voice even. I won't hide. Laura hung up, exhaled. There's more. Harrison Klein brought a motion to the board. Claims you're a liability to the brand. He's demanding your removal. Ethan folded his arms. So what now? We fight back. She slid a folder across her desk. Proof of your results. Testimonials. Budget efficiency reports. Your story has weight now. More than you know. If they want to test us, let's show them exactly what you're made of. But it wouldn't be that easy. That afternoon, someone leaked Ethan's employment file to the press. His juvenile record, fistfights in high school. A single arrest for trespassing when he tried to sleep in an abandoned trailer with baby Liam. His poor credit score. An unpaid speeding ticket from 3 years ago. All of it splashed across blog headlines. Charity poster boy or fraud. Inside Ethan Maddox's troubled past. When Ethan saw the article, his heart dropped. He felt the shame crawl up his neck like wildfire. By the time he picked Liam up from school, 2 parents had already whispered his name behind their phones. The principal, kind but visibly nervous, pulled Ethan aside. There's been concern, she said carefully. Some parents don't feel safe having Liam here now. Ethan froze. What? What's that supposed to mean? I don't agree with it, she rushed, but the school board's talking about it. I'm sorry. That night, Liam asked, Dad, are we in trouble again? And Ethan broke a little inside. 3 days passed. The tension at Horizon Trust grew thick enough to cut. Employees divided into quiet factions. Some stood behind Ethan. Those who believed in his story, who'd watched him transform this sterile nonprofit into something that mattered. Others kept their distance, afraid of the storm Harrison Klein was brewing. And then, Laura disappeared. No text, no call, no word. Her office remained locked. Her assistant said she was on medical leave. But Ethan knew something wasn't right. Late one night, he drove to her old address. The same building where he'd once seen her drenched in the rain, begging without words. But she wasn't there. Instead, a woman named Grace, a retired nurse who once helped Olivia, answered the door. She doesn't tell many people the truth, Grace said softly. But if you're here, maybe you deserve to know. And what Grace revealed made Ethan's blood run cold. Laura hadn't just created Horizon Trust after her daughter's death. She'd used it as a shield to bury her guilt. Because the night Olivia died, Laura wasn't home. She was in a hotel room with Harrison Klein. They had an affair, one that started when Laura was at her lowest, emotionally shattered from a divorce, ashamed of losing custody. Harrison was her advisor then. Charming, calculated, dangerous. When Olivia fell ill, Laura ignored 5 missed calls from the babysitter. By the time she got to the hospital, it was too late. Guilt consumed her. She broke ties with everyone, including Harrison. She disappeared for 2 years, then returned, vowing to build something good from the ashes. Something pure, something honest. But Harrison had never let go. He'd used her secret to manipulate the board, control her, slowly turn Horizon Trust into a playground for the powerful. And now that Ethan had captured public attention, Harrison saw a threat to the image he'd built. A reminder of the one night everything fell apart. He'll destroy her, Grace warned. And if you don't do something, he'll destroy you too. Ethan drove home in silence, hands shaking on the wheel. He thought about Liam's eyes, about the sandwich he gave that rainy night, about the way Laura looked when she said, "You reminded me why I built this place." He couldn't let it end like this. So the next morning, Ethan did the unthinkable. He walked into Harrison's office. Alone. "You want me gone?" he said, voice steady. "Fine, but I want one thing first." Harrison looked up from his desk, smirking. "And what's that, grease monkey?" Ethan pulled out a flash drive and set it on the desk. It's everything. Testimonials, footage, numbers, the truth. You release this during tomorrow's board meeting, or I go public. And if I do, your name's going to be right beside hers. In every headline. Harrison's smirk faded. "You think you can blackmail me?" "No," Ethan said, leaning in. "I think I can end you." And for the first time, Harrison looked afraid. But Ethan wasn't done. He called a news station that afternoon, agreed to a televised interview. The next evening, he sat in front of bright lights and told the world his story. The hunger, the fight, the kindness, the betrayal, the truth. And for every person who doubted him, 10 more stood in support. Hashtag #FatherForward started trending online. By the end of the week, Harrison was suspended. The board called an emergency vote, and Laura, returning with quiet dignity, was reinstated as CEO. When she walked into Ethan's office and closed the door, tears already forming, she didn't speak at first. She just hugged him. "I don't deserve this," she whispered. "No," Ethan said softly. "You earned it." And in that moment, they weren't savior and saved. They were survivors, both fighting to make something right. Together. 3 weeks later, the Horizon Trust building felt different. Warmer. More human. Ethan now headed the Father Forward initiative officially. His face was on pamphlets, and his story played on community bulletins. But what mattered more was what he saw every day. Dads who once felt invisible, now lining up for help, shoulders no longer hunched in shame. One of them, a man named Jorge, approached Ethan after a workshop. "You don't know what this means," Jorge said, voice breaking. "I thought I was just a failed dad, but now I feel like I matter again." Ethan gripped his shoulder. "You always did." But with new purpose came new pressure. He barely slept. Balancing work, Liam's needs, interviews, meetings, it all piled up. Laura noticed. You need to rest, she told him one night after a late board session. Burning out won't help anyone. I can't afford to slow down, Ethan replied. What if this all disappears again? Laura looked at him, calm but firm. It won't. You built something real. But if you fall, so does everything you've built. That night, as he tucked Liam into bed, Ethan noticed a yellow envelope in his son's backpack. Liam smiled sleepily. Found it behind the drawer at Grandpa's house. I think it's for you. Ethan's breath caught. His father, gone 3 years now, had barely left anything behind. Just tools and debts. He opened the envelope with shaking hands. Inside was a single letter. Ethan, I know I wasn't the dad you needed. I didn't leave you much. But if you're reading this, maybe you've already figured it out. You're the kind of man I wish I'd been. Don't stop being that man. He read it 3 times, heart thudding. For years, he thought he was fixing his own broken legacy. Now, he realized he was building a new one. 2 weeks later, Ethan made a decision. He gathered his team, Laura, and even Harrison, now demoted but cooperative, and announced the plan. A national expansion. Father Forward would spread across 5 states. Not just for PR, Ethan said, but because too many dads are still eating in the dark, pretending they're fine. I was one of them, and I'll fight so no one else has to be. Applause erupted. Laura smiled through tears. And as Ethan stood there, proud but grounded, he caught a glimpse of Liam in the hallway, peeking in, smiling. That smile, wide, proud, full of light, was worth more than any salary, any promotion, any spotlight. It was proof that even one small act of kindness could change a life forever.